Chapter 13 Luli Mazam ben Malik was a good storyteller. His face was like quicksand, his expression alternating between exuberance and solemnity with envious fluidity. If she'd had any doubts that this was Yusuf, they were gone now. The prince was just as starry-eyed when he told stories as when he listened to them. Luli did not realize how invested in the tale she was until it ended. For a time she had felt like a child listening to tales around a campfire, but this was no hearth, and the fantastical legend was not a harmless story. Possibly it would send her to her death. She glared at the Sultan. "You would have me believe this legendary lamp exists." The Sultan looked at Hakim, who began unrolling a series of dusty, ancient-looking scrolls. The papyrus was stained, the words scrawled on the scrolls faded with age. Luli saw slanted letters and dates, and a signature, an aleph followed by a meme, a ya, and a ra, Amir. The Sultan gestured toward the documents. "These are the papers that founded our kingdom. In them Amir writes of the jinn he enslaved. He writes of the items the jinn enchanted for him and the lamp's burial. And he writes most importantly of ways to enter the sand sea. There are paths, al-Nazari, caves that lead beneath the sands, and roads hidden beneath the waves. If others have failed to locate your lamp, what makes you think I can find it?" The longer Luli stared at the scrolls, the tighter her lungs became. She had stood in front of the sand sea before, but never ventured into it. It was a land of no return. Even Kadir, who traveled up through it once, would not approach it again. "They were not collectors of ancient relics," the Sultan said, "but you are." "Why me?" Luli insisted. "Why not your son, Prince Omar?" She glanced at the eldest prince and frowned. She had not forgotten their last encounter, the way anger had clouded his eyes when the Sultan leaned over Mazen. It had occurred to her that the Sultan never asked Omar if he was unharmed. "My son is a hunter, not a tracker." He paused, and the silence had an ominous weight, a foreboding that surrounded them like smoke. Luli wanted to wave it away, to wave all this away like she would a bad dream. "Omar," the Sultan turned to his son, and Omar dipped his head in acknowledgment. "You will accompany the merchant to make sure she does not run from her responsibility." "What?" She and the prince spoke at the same time. "I hear you employ a bodyguard, al-Nazari. Think of my son as additional security." Omar frowned. "But Yuba, my thieves." "I will take over your plans for them," the Sultan spoke in a cold voice that brooked no disagreement. A muscle feathered in Omar's face as he clenched his jaw, but Luli would not be cowed. It was bad enough she was being blackmailed, and now she was being forced to journey with the king of the 40 thieves, with a jinn killer. "I do not need another bodyguard." The Sultan shook his head. "This is not up for negotiation." "You do not trust me?" The Sultan scoffed. "Trust a conniving merchant woman? I think not." He leaned forward. "Do not forget, al-Nazari, you are a criminal. I could throw you in the bowels. I could take away your freedom and put a noose around your neck." Luli was trembling with fear, with anger, because she knew the Sultan did not lie. She had not yet been born when he'd killed his wives in cold blood, but she'd heard the tales, and she'd seen him sentence people to imprisonment in the bowels for lesser crimes. She had never felt so helpless. The Sultan leaned back, a faint smirk on his lips, a word of warning. "Do not think you can steal the lamp. The jinn is my ancestor's prisoner. You will not be able to use its magic." Cocky bastard. She bit down on her tongue before it shaped the words. "Yuba," Mazen cut in weakly. "Amir threw the lamp into the sand sea because its power blinded him. I do not think it wise to—" "Silence, boy." The words had the force of a slap, and the prince went mute beside her. "It was not the power that corrupts, but intent," the Sultan continued, "and my intentions are pure as they come." "Oh?" Luli forced herself to look up right into the Sultan's eyes. What could a murderer possibly want with a jinn servant? "The jinn have been a plague on our land for years. The hunts are inefficient. The jinn still exist, and we cannot dig them out from the sand sea, you know? But we must eliminate them. I will not let them steal my family from me." His eyes flickered to Mazen, who glanced away, face ashen. "With this magic, I will have the power to end them." "Oh." Luli clenched her hands in her lap, willing them to stop shaking. Defeat magic with magic, Hakim said softly. A jinn against jinn. Luli was having trouble breathing. Kadir, she thought, he would kill Kadir. Not just a jinn, but one of the 7 kings, the Sultan affirmed. He leveled his stoic gaze on Luli. Do you see, Al-Nazari? This is just a quest. It will lead to a massacre. What will it be? The Sultan's dark eyes bored into her. Will you find the relic and become a hero, or will you flee like a criminal and perish in the desert, with no one there to mourn you? Luli had avoided politics to escape this exact scenario, being a pawn in someone else's game. She was a wanderer, not a mercenary, yet here she sat at the edge of the precipice with danger on either side, and for the first time in her life she was forced to cave. I accept your request. She looked down ashamed. I will find your lamp. She did not see the look of triumph on the Sultan's face. She did not want to. The Sultan insisted she remain in the palace. He would need to discuss specifics with her over the following days and would help her prepare for her journey. Luli was barely listening. She thought about Prince Omar, who would be shadowing her like a vulture, and Kadir, who would have no choice but to remain in his human form while they traveled. She thought of the trek through the desert and of the cities and oases they would need to pass through, but mostly she thought of the sand sea and of the relic inside, the relic she was somehow meant to collect. By the time she was dismissed, the forest seemed hostile. Everywhere Luli looked, she saw silver blood gleaming in the leaves and glittering like dew on the grass and windows. Behind her, the Sultan and his sons had started speaking about something else. Did you find the thing I told you to look for? I have searched the whole diwan, my Sultan, Omar said. It is not here. You are certain? A beat of silence? Yes. Luli walked out without absorbing the words. She had no time for the present, not when the future was much more likely to get her and Kadir killed. She forced air into her lungs. I will not let that happen. She lifted her head as she exited the room. I am Luli al-Nazari, the Midnight Merchant, and I am the master of my own fate.